Hi guys, we're going to be going over your chapter 2 test review today. Number 1 says make a conjecture about the next term in the sequence, 92, 87, 82, 77, and 72. Our conjecture would be that we are subtracting 5 each time. So we're doing minus 5 each time, and we're supposed to make a prediction about our next term. So 72 minus our 5 would give us 67. Number 2 says make a conjecture about the next term in this sequence, negative 11, negative 7, negative 3, 1, and 5. We are adding 4 each time, so our conjecture would be that we're adding 4. And to make a prediction about our next term, we would need to do 5 plus 4, which does give us 9. On number 3, it says a conditional statement is given below. If a number is divisible by 3, then the sum of its digits is divisible by 3. Remember, on a conditional statement, we have two parts, the hypothesis and the conclusion. Remember, the hypothesis is the part that comes after the if, and the conclusion is the part that comes after the then. We can also call the hypothesis the P, and we can call the conclusion our Q. And our question says, which of the following is the inverse of the given statement? So remember, if we're writing the inverse, we're going to negate both the hypothesis and the conclusion. So we're going to be adding the word not in the hypothesis and the conclusion. So letter A says, if a number is not divisible by 3, then the sum of its digits is not divisible by 3. So letter A is your correct answer. Number 4, we're given that A plus B is less than or equal to 8 and A is equal to 2, and then our conjecture is that B has to be less than or equal to 5. And which of these would be a counterexample? The only one that is greater than 5 would be B equals 6. And if we plug in our 2 and we plug in our 6, we can see that, in fact, that is a true statement. So 6 would be our counterexample to our conjecture. Number 5, which property justifies the given information? We have angle ABD plus angle DBC is equal to angle ABC. So this is our segment addition postulate. On number 6, we are making a conjecture about the next object in the sequence. So we're adding a side each time. So plus a side. So we have a 5-sided figure. We're also alternating between dark and light. So we would need a dark hexagon next. If you drew it, that's perfectly fine as well. Number 7, we have a true or false statement. True or false, if a conditional statement is true, then the contrapositive is also true. This is a true statement. Remember that the conditional statement and its contrapositive are logically equivalent, meaning that if one's true, the other one's true. If one's false, the other one's false. And then also converse and inverse are logically equivalent as well. So if one's true, the other one's true. If one's false, the other one's false. On number 8, it says to write the converse for the following statement. If cats fly, then ducks bark. Remember, converse, to write the converse, you're going to switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if cats fly is our hypothesis, then ducks bark is our conclusion. So the converse would be if ducks bark, then cats fly. Number 9 says determine which statement follows logically from statements 1 and 2. 9, number 1 says if a triangle is equilateral, that's our P, then it has 3 congruent sides, that's our Q. If all the sides of a triangle are congruent, that's Q again, then each of its angles measures 60 degrees. That's our R. So remember that our law of syllogism says if P then Q, then Q then R, then P then R is also true. So if a triangle is equilateral, then each of its angles measures 60 degrees. So D is your correct answer. On number 10, says use the law of detachment to write a valid conclusion for the given information. If two angles are supplementary, is our P. Then their measures have a sum of 180 is our Q. And then X, Y are supplementary, so that's our P again. Remember that the law of detachment says if P then Q and P is true, then Q is also true. Okay, so the conclusion that we can draw here is that angle X and angle Y have a sum of 180. On numbers 11 through 13, we're going to use the given conditional statement, and we're going to write the inverse, converse, and contrapositive. Remember to write the inverse. We are going to make them both negative. So if a ray does not bisect an angle, then it does not divide the angle into two congruent angles. The converse, we're just going to switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if it divides the angle into two congruent angles, then a ray bisects an angle. And then our contrapositive, we're going to flip them and make them negative. So we're going to switch the hypothesis and conclusion and make them negative. So if it does not divide an angle into two congruent angles, then a ray does not bisect an angle. Number 14, we're writing the inverse for the given statement. Remember, inverse means we're going to make them both negative, the hypothesis and the conclusion. If a triangle does not have three equal sides, then it is not an equilateral triangle.